beginners always make the exact same classical mistakes when coming uh, into boxing. So boxing, we can basically break it down as an art into two components: offensive and defensive moves. And you might think that boxers are wasting your time with this pedagogic, kind of like uh, just rote teaching of getting you to do drills where your feet stay apart all the time. They don't cross up over each other, they stay kind of in this wide base. So, namely, if you're moving this way, you move that foot first. If you're moving this way, you move this foot first. Moving backward, you move your rear foot first. It just seems so simple for years, and you're like, I want to do that fancy stuff. But truth is, all that fancy stuff comes from having a perfect stance, comes from training the footwork as much, if not more, than you train the hands. Because even though we break it down into offense and defense, it all comes from the same kamai, which is a Japanese word for stance. And they have it in Shaolin Kung Fu, they have it in Wing Chun. Stance is so important. In karate, it's so formalized and perfect, and people don't realize that in boxing, it's so much more important. Because in boxing, this is a sport of knockouts, of traumatic head injuries. Repeated blunt force trauma to the head is the number one way to win in boxing. So that's why having a formalized understanding of exactly where your hands should be, exactly where your feet and body should be, is so important. But if we do break it down and get out of the holistic view of it and just look at little things, yes, we can divide it into offense and defense. And in terms of defense, it's very hard for beginners to master the understanding of exactly where their head is and moving precisely out of that space where their head is. And how important that precise motion is to moving out of the way of an incoming punch and delivering a successful punch. It's something I'll have to go into more detail later, but needless to say, defense and offense both need to be precise. You can't be moving your head a little, you can't be moving it way too much and being off balance. Moving your head means moving it in one of 9 different directions, all around different spots of the Rubik's Cube, but it means forward and back in complete 3 dimensions, moving your head completely out of the space that it was in, completely out of the space that it was in. Because if somebody's fist is coming through, guess what's happening next? Their elbow, their shoulder, everything. Growing up in Boston, I saw 5 people get knocked out every night. 5 people a night on a street that I work on called Lansdowne Street, where the ball games let out and where the nightclubs let out at. And I worked there for years and years and years and years. And I took down what I saw, and it was always the same thing. It was always somebody shuffling in at an angle and throwing a huge overhand knockout haymaker right hand. It was always this really untrained punch that they had probably thrown in their basement on a heavy bag, or just thrown against a wall, but it worked and it knocked people out who were untrained fighters. I have a couple of amazing stories of the 2 or 3 times I saw trained fighters really light people up who tried that attack. So the number one best friend of professional boxers and trained fighters, even trained amateurs, or really good trained recreational fighters, their number one friend, some totally untrained guy taking a completely telegraphed swing, is your worst nightmare. Because if you're a beginner, you can't necessarily safely get out of the way of that, even see it coming without taking your eyes off of it, and certainly not quickly move out of the way of it and roll or slip. And you know, if you've never knocked somebody out, if you've never been knocked down yourself and don't understand the whole mechanics and dynamics of that, if you've never hit or been hit, this is really, really tough stuff to digest, and it's really overwhelming, I understand. So I'm trying to break it down for you as best as possible. Most importantly is defense, of course, but in addition to the defense is having a powerful, powerful delivery system that understands what the targets are that will end that fight. So obviously we go for the knockout points, the mental foreman, the temple, right under the ear, the cheekbone, anywhere around the nose or mouth or goatee area is very sweet, but it's very different. I've been hit full force in the face like this many times, and surprisingly, it didn't do much. I mean, I have my teeth shattered, my elbows and headbutts and stuff. I've been hit very light over here in the mental foramen, not even by pro fighters. Pro fighters have beat my head in left and right, different ones giving me black eyes, fat lips, bruises, all that. But I've had just recreational people who haven't even fought in the amateurs hit me real hard, right, or real soft right here. This is a huge knockout point. So obviously we got to keep that covered, and that's something we target, especially at an angle. But I won't go into the angles yet. The liver is more of a sophisticated target. You've got to have real power to knock somebody out with a liver shot. It took me decades to master it, to find out it wasn't here, it wasn't there. It's a tennis ball sized nerve, and it's right here, and it doesn't matter how big you are. If you get hit hard there, it is so painful. I've been knocked out to the liver about 7 or 8 times sparring with pro fighters, and it's devastating. I could make a movie about the feeling of the pain. It's so intense. It's like you see an x-ray. You see every one of your organs. You feel like you're about to die. And so that having been said, if you're a beginner, just remember, if you hit somebody anywhere around here, you're not going to do anything. You've got to aim for the throat, the eyes, the groin, or this vulnerable, sensitive. You saw me just massaging my chest here. That's how friggin' hard. Even if you're not, I don't train. I never train my chest. You know, I don't do bench press ever or push-ups ever. So I have admittedly weak pecs, and I'm even trying to massage it, and I can't get past that deep muscular wall. So if you're hitting me here really hard, it's going to be like high-fiving me. But if you're hitting me down here anywhere, it's like hitting me in the face. I'm going to feel it. Anybody would feel it. This is like the face, and this is like that hard part of the skull. And while we're talking about that, sorry, I'm working all day. I'm jumping into a quick break to make this video for you guys. If you hit anywhere around the skull, anywhere where my hands are now, you will shatter your hand. If you hit anywhere where my hands are now, you will be awesome. And you'll likely do some serious damage, especially, I mean, I always say, if you hit somebody 10 times, my boss came up with this phrase, and I love it. If you hit somebody 10 times and they don't go down, you don't know what you're doing. And it's true. And it's not like you're going to hit anybody hard 10 times anywhere around this part of the face, and they're not going to feel it. It's going to cause a lot of damage. But as we get into the sophisticated elements of how to box,